Hello, my name's Stella Banag, and I'm a senior lecturer within the Nottingham Institute for Languages and Intercultural Communication at Nottingham Trent University.
And hello, I am Cristina Laporta. I am a senior lecturer with the University of Central Lancashire, and I am a PhD candidate in intercultural competence in the EAP.
Hello, my name is Meg McLean. I'm a lecturer at the University of Edinburgh. I'm also the Centre's Director of International, so I'll be talking about the development of our international strategy.
Okay, so Meg, Christina and I, today we're going to talk about some of our perspectives on intercultural communication teacher training. And we're all obviously from different universities, and we're all kind of at different stages of our intercultural teacher training journey. And what we wanted to do today was to start by thinking about what is intercultural communication training and why is it important. And Christina will share her ideas on that. And then we'll move on to Meg, who's going to talk about really thinking about introducing intercultural communication teacher training and some of the research needed and needs analysis and relationships that need to be formed. And then finally, we'll move on to myself, and I'll talk about really two approaches that we've taken with the intercultural communication teacher training we've done at Nottingham Trent University, university-wide with some of our lecturers there. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Christina, who's going to give us some background to intercultural communication training.
So hello everyone again, and thank you for being here today. So I will start this presentation and as a PhD candidate on intercultural competence and EAP, I will focus on what intercultural competence and intercultural communication is and why we believe it should be developed not only on a student level, but also as part of teachers' CPD. So if we can move to the next slide, please. One way of approaching what intercultural competence is starting with definitions, but there are so many similar terms used in literature today, and many of us get confused or may not be able to say the difference between some of them, not to mention, of course, the fact that some terms may be used interchangeably. But of course, it all comes down to the definition of culture. And although there have been so many definitions, currently some of which may help us approach the term a little more broadly, moving away from previous narrow racial or ethnic definitions, for example, it still is a term that is difficult to define mainly because of its complexity, of its fluidity, of its dynamic nature. So if we move to the next slide, please. Instead of trying to define culture, Hall coined the concept of the cultural iceberg. Now, the iceberg analogy of culture helps us understand why intercultural interactions may be so challenging and may end up in conflict or miscommunication so easily. So, according to the cultural iceberg analogy, only 10% of culture is visible. So first we have the artifacts of culture, which is actually what we can see, like the appearance of people, the clothes they wear, arts, festivals, things like that. Secondly, we have the norms and the values, that is written or even unwritten standards of correct behavior, of desired behavior, like family relationships, customs, traditions, levels of politeness, for example. But about 90% of culture is the abstract, the invisible basic assumptions. Now, those are learned at a very young age. they shape, or as we say, they may distort our perception of the world or the judgments we make of other people. And most of the time, we are not even aware of their influence. And this is exactly where intercultural communication comes to play, because it is about making us, first of all, aware of the basic assumptions of our own culture, so that then we can recognize the basic assumptions of other cultures, hopefully helping us develop qualities such as self-awareness, seeing from other perspectives, adaptation, respect, cultural humility. And if we can move to the next slide, please. This probably brings the discussion to the why is intercultural communication so important today? And if Stella, you could click one more time for some reason. Thank you. Thank you. So why is it so important to develop our intercultural competencies and intercultural communication today? What has changed in our world? Well, first of all, if we think of higher education, we are all aware of the changes in recent years, where internationalization and transnational education have brought intercultural competences to the spotlight. But at the same time, I always insist that we should not ignore the global reality. And, you know, we are definitely aware of how globalization and population mobility have changed our societies, bringing unrest, instability, unfortunately, sometimes even violence. So these are some of the reasons why it has been extensively discussed and agreed in literature, but also by international bodies, such as the Council of Europe, UNESCO, or the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that intercultural competencies are of utmost importance for peace building and harmonious coexistence in our fluid and multicultural societies. And if we please could move to the next slide. So these are some of the initiatives that have been proposed by three of the most prestigious organizations on the matter. And if you want to find more information, I think you could have a look at those initiatives and see how intercultural competencies are recommended being included within educational schemes. And if we can please move to the next slide. So this, of course, brings the discussion to cultural synergy. So intercultural competencies could bring cultural synergy, and this makes sense because research has shown that if cultural differences are ignored in culturally diverse teams, this usually leads to misunderstandings, miscommunication, and as a result, those teams are inefficient, problematic, with all the issues that we have actually discussed a bit, or we have touched upon. But if those culturally diverse teams are managed and trained to embrace difference, this helps them reach effective communication. This helps the members understand and appreciate the cultural differences rather than, create conflict. And as a result, cultural diversity usually inspires, so those teams can become creative, effective, dynamic. And this is exactly what we call cultural synergy, which is when teams, groups, societies work together, making the best use of each individual's strengths rather than creating conflicts or focusing on others' weaknesses or differences. And this is why countries, organizations, and universities have started embracing intercultural pedagogies. And if we can move to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, this is the last slide, sorry. So this is where EAP lies, because language is an expression of culture. it carries culture, and this not only brings EAP to the spotlight, but I think it also brings the EAP practitioner who needs the skills, the attitudes, the knowledge to successfully communicate and cooperate as a global educator and citizen, and to effectively prepare our students for such a challenging global reality. And of course, this brings us to my two amazing colleagues who will share with you their approaches to teacher training. Thank you.